Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you with us. This week we continue our focus on an integrated Africa, featuring a panel discussion with African eminent elders held at the Africa Leadership Forum in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. We get your views on the issues, plus we have Africa's top 10. You're watching the Africa Leadership Dialogues. I'm Julie Gichuru. On the Africa Leadership Dialogues this week, we continue our focus on how to achieve an integrated Africa. Our panel of eminent persons:
Olusegun Obasanjo, former president of Nigeria; JerryRawlings, former president of Ghana; Bakili Muluzi, former president of Malawi; and Dr. Salim Ahmed Salim, former Secretary General, Organization for African Unity, OAU. Festus Mogae, former president of Botswana, will also share his insights.
These discussions took place at the Africa Leadership Forum held in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. The forum was established by former President of Tanzania, Benjamin Mkapa. Let's get straight to the discussion.
We talk about integration, but integration is not about exchange of goods and commodities only. Integration is about people. To what extent are the people's interests taken into account? I'm concerned, for example, that until now, it's extremely difficult for Africans to move. In 1991, when I was in your country, General, the then president of the World Bank, whom I had invited to address the summit, because the summit which produced the Abuja Treaty, said something which really stuck in my mind. He said, it is easier for me, a Muzungu. Muzungu, yeah.
Doesn't know what Mzungu means. Everybody knows. Even the Mzungus, no, thank you.
He said, it's easier for me, a Muzungu, to go from one African country to another than for the Africans. Now, that statement was made in 1991. I thought that had shaken us, but are things better now than they were before 1991? The truth remains that still there is a feeling of almost resignation. Africans still find it extremely difficult to travel from one African country to another. And I think almost all our countries are guilty of that. So I would say the first thing is to have confidence in ourselves, to forget these, petty things, to believe that everybody wants to come to Tanzania, for example. My God, who is this person? Is he having some grand schemes against our country and so on? I think that we must do. And that's, once we've done that, then it's become easier to facilitate a process of integration. Because at the political level, you will find no political leader in this continent who will say he's against our integration. They'll all say we are integration, we want for integration, but what is it for us? And I think at the end of the day, when we have an integrated Africa, all African countries win.
This is something we have to achieve, whether we like it or not. Salim talked about from the beginning, for what reason should I not need, with my diplomatic passport or official passport, go to almost anywhere in the world? And there was a time I had to go to a country in Africa to attend a meeting. And because I couldn't get a visa, I could not go.
Which country?
I will not tell you.
Please tell.
Now, because it doesn't matter, what we need to do is abolish visa in Africa. Look, what we claim that is our problem, visa or no visa, that problem will be there. And maybe we can better deal with the problem. Let's talk of security. they talk of security, and they will say that is the reason why we cannot abolish visa. We have abolished visa in West Africa for 14 countries. It hasn't made our security issue more difficult or more problematic. I think this is one thing, even if that is the decision we take here today, that Africa should. And let's take the countries that are ready. If 4 or 5 countries are ready, let them abolish visas. And those that are ready, let them come and join. We in West Africa, ECOWAS, we have free movement of goods, and they say because we produce the same thing, that's why we cannot trade among ourselves. I don't buy that nonsense. The Germans and the French are producing the same thing, and they are trading among themselves. Now, what you produce here, you produce cashew. The last time I was here, President Kappa gave me beautiful cashew from his farm. Now, that can be sold in Nigeria. We have a population of 180 million. All the cashews you produce here, we can eat in Nigeria. Now, what do you get? Let's get it to Nigeria. Now, we can trade among ourselves, and we need to do that. And the means of doing it, let us have a core of countries that understand and that they are ready to spearhead, and let them go.
Do Africans believe in an integrated Africa? Do we want an integrated Africa? Have we tried to communicate to our citizenry the benefits, some of which have been highlighted by President Obasanjo, of an integrated Africa? Are there some real risks that we need to be talking about? Let's just openly discuss this. Mr. President, on the end, please, I begin with your thoughts.
I think we do. But you know, when we talk about the issue of integration, I thought that we should be looking at the problems which are there, which have been hindering the issues of integration. The issue of communication, for example. I left yesterday from Blantyre, connected to the long way, flew to Nairobi, had to fly here, arriving in the evening. That's a problem. I think let's look at what is it which is hindering regional integration or continental integration. These are things which we're talking about. We all want that. But there are very serious problems which are there. The issue of visas, for instance, I don't want to mention a country where, you know, our people are being sent away from that country to go to their homes. These are problems. We have to resolve these. These are real problems which we need to resolve. Definitely, as governments, as our people, we all believe in this, but there are really, you know, teething problems which we must resolve.
Before we leave you, Mr. President, what are the 3 key things that you would like to see done to resolve these problems?
One would be to improve infrastructure, which unfortunately is a problem. Improve communication. The issue of the visa you're talking about, free movement of our people, they should be able to trade. How would you trade if I want to come to Tanzania, I want to go to South Africa, I want to go to Malawi, then you have to apply a visa for a visa? You can't. There'll be problems. You know, a business person time is of essence. And therefore, the issue of visa, for instance, is very, very important. The communication I've talked about, infrastructure development you're talking about, roads and all that. These are things we need to be looking at.
Thank you. President Rawlings, are Africans being duplicitous about this whole issue? So yes, we want integration, yes, we want, but maybe not right now. Is that part of the problem that we're facing? What would you like to see happening to accelerate integration as well?
Actually, I think those of us in West Africa, even within our own countries, have outgrown one another's suspicion of each other's tribes. And this has extended into the region. So I'll say that integration on the platform of movement of persons and settlement is taking place, irrespective of whatever regulations or whatever we're doing up here. There's pressure on the ground. Movement is taking place, has been taking place over the years. And I must say that the misfortune of some of these conflicts that we've had in the past has also created a movement of people seeking security. As a result, Ghana, for instance, has become, I'll say, a haven for so many people from West Africa. And the benefits of integration, movements of goods and persons, seems to have matured in my country, but possibly to the disadvantage of our own people, because his people have brought in all the wealth, the investments, they're buying up properties, and now they've created a high cost of living for our people.
But you see, this is the worry. It's that push and
Ghana is
it's that push and pull.
Ghana is better for it.
Do you want a right of reply?
All the slush money from Nigeria goes to Ghana.
Okay.
That's why we're so happy that Buhari has emerged. No, but maybe we need a bit of historical memory, like that of President, for those in the seat right now. You know, like those of the Mugabes, the discipline of people like Kagame, and the integrity with which Nigerians fought for and got hold of a solid man of integrity like Buhari. I mean, the dynamism of this country, led by a government of integrity, is going to bring changes in West Africa.
Thank you. President Obasanjo, as we mentioned earlier, the national conflicts that are still issues in Africa today, even as we try to integrate, but there are also international factors. The security factor was introduced into this discussion by President Rawlings. Let's just look at the way the world communicates, connects, partners, engages with Africa, and how that affects our ability to integrate. Do you have thoughts on whether it hinders or enhances integration in Africa?
It is in the best interest of Africa to integrate. But it may not be in the best interest of the rest of the world for Africa to integrate. And if we do not know that, then we do not know anything. It is like what a European leader, friend of mine, said to me. He said, look, we created capitalism for ourselves, not for you. And he was being honest. And he asked me a simple question. He said, for what reason should I buy your cocoa for $100 if I can buy it for $50, add value, and sell it to you for $1,000? Oh, I said, for the sake of common humanity. He said, go to the economics books and show me where common humanity is a factor. And there is none. Now, the point is this. At every stage, we had tried to do something of bringing ourselves together. There are outside forces that militate against it. Let me give an example of ECOWAS. When we were trying to establish ECOWAS some 40 years ago, if not for a particular West African leader who stood firm, we wouldn't have done it. We wouldn't have done it because the French didn't want us to do it. They just didn't want us to do it. But then, as I said to President Chirac when I went to him, and I said, look, Mr. President, I understand your interest in Franco-African countries. Your interest is economic. Your interest is linguistic. But my interest is anthropology, is geography, is relationship. There's nothing you can do to make Republic of Benin not to be neighbor of Nigeria. There's nothing you can do. Absolutely nothing. And I say, look, let us understand that. Leave me the room to do what I need to do. I will not stand in your economic way, but don't stand in my relational way.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
Thank you very much. Halim Msisia is my name, from Malawi, but I teach at the University of London at Birkbeck College. Now I want to ask the Excellencies, what do they see as the role of, for instance, institutions of higher learning, of knowledge, in promoting integration? Thank you.
Mr. Shivji, Director of General Resource Center. I would like to make a follow-up comment on what Professor Obasanjo said in the first round, because I think he spoke unspeakable in such forum. The point I want to make is that it is not that we are not integrated, because we are very much integrated. The question is with whom and in whose interest. And you will find that we are vertically integrated with the North. And increasingly, we are trying harder and harder every day to get integrated with the North. And in the process, we are becoming competitors. And therefore, as President Obasanjo said, we find that horizontal integration becomes more and more difficult, because it is not in the interest of the imperialist power for us to get integrated horizontally. And even where we occasionally manage to create some integration among ourselves horizontally, it is usually facilitated by the North in their interest. Like, for example, creating markets, common markets. The question we should ask is whose goods and which people move across these borders? Are they our goods which move across these borders, or someone else's goods? So I think this is important to keep in mind in our discussion.
My name is Jeff Aludo with Africa Practice. I think we've kind of had various points raised around this, but I think the Africa identity issue is that we might have an identity around common challenges and common history. But Africa, I think, has struggled with an identity around common opportunities and common values. I think Africa might not be looking towards building social capital, if you will, as a way of saying that how can we work better together?
I'm Catherine Rose from Kinu, which is an ICT and entrepreneurship hub based here in Tanzania. A lot of the panelists have mentioned the idea of youth mobilization. And I'm just wondering, where does regional integration leave the large numbers of unskilled youth that we're seeing in our countries? It's great to say, let's open our borders and allow for a free movement of labor. But the problem that I see, especially in our sector, is we have unskilled youth. And what are we doing about them? How do we address this need? Either at a national level, as you have done, or how do we supersede and look at this as an Africa-wide issue?
Salim Amin from Africa 24 Media. The reality check, we talked about the knowledge and exposure that the youth have. Let's look down south. There's not a lot of representation here from South Africa. Xenophobia, in the last 2 or 3 months only, there have been this brutal attacks against foreigners in South Africa. How are we talking about integration on a continent that is still experiencing incidences like this, where South Africans actually, young South Africans have no knowledge of their history and the role that other African countries played in getting rid of apartheid? How do we expect them to embrace other Africans who were integral in giving them the freedoms that they have now? They've just introduced new visa laws again, to stop more Africans from coming into South Africa. So I'm struggling as to how we're going to integrate this sort of stuff. African media, again, we're very responsible for telling positive African stories, and we need to be able to talk to each other using that media to be able to tell those types of stories.
Left, so we really just have time to come back to the panel for their final thoughts as we wind up. Lots of thoughts shared there. We are struggling with common opportunities and common values. We do have common challenges and a common history, we are told. There's a question of youth and especially unskilled youth and how we deal with them in Africa. The issue of xenophobia in South Africa has been raised. And the reality that young South Africans have no idea what other African countries did to contribute to their freedom. They see Africans within South Africa as burdens on them. They will attack an African in South Africa, but they will not attack another foreigner. Some of the very real situations that we're facing. And then again, the focus, we need to build institutions, we are told. Let's just get your final views on these comments and from each of you. President Muluzi, I'll start with you on that side.
I was very interested about the issue of the youth. I would like to comment on that one. If indeed our continent is going to progress, we need to invest in the youth, educationally, business-wise, because those are the future. That's the comment I wanted to make. It's very, very important. We always say that the youth are the leaders of tomorrow, but can we make them leaders of today and train them, to do, even the business we're talking about? We should not just use them as instruments of violence in other countries. I think we should use them in order to develop our countries. The regional integration we are talking about, I really wanted to emphasize on the issue of the youth. Training, giving them skills, which must be created. That's very important.
It's true, we've paid a little too much lip service to training and providing the necessary skills, to the youth. And I think that's an area we should tackle a little more seriously, like the president said. But whether we like it or not, the technology of today is something they're adapting much quicker, as a result of which they seem better prepared to deal with issues globally. And I think we should find ways and means to create a platform for them to transform some of their findings, some of their, to practicalize, to operationalize some of the knowledge they're acquiring. Something I realize is that the true you here in Tanzania, for instance, have remained a very stable country for a very long time because you did not adopt a foreign language that subsumed the culture, the spirituality of your people. The language, the Swahili brought the best out of you. Irrespective of your educational background, you could trade you could trade wisdom, knowledge by virtue of the language. In adopting the English language, the French language, the German, whatever it is, I'm not against it. We should have spoken it with the integrity of our culture, rather than leaving the integrity of our culture behind and speaking the language in this peripheral manner and intimidating our people with it. That's not good enough. The English people speak their English language with integrity. We speak our local languages with integrity. Hello, sir. We don't have to be a psychiatrist or a psychologist to understand this very basic thing I'm saying. So I think it's important that we do not misjudge, the value and the essence of our people just because of the words or their inability to articulate things. They're very rich in thought.
We talk about xenophobia in South Africa. I think this thing should be taken in its context. It's important for us to learn from the South African experience. I was in South Africa about 6 or 7 years ago, invited by the ANC to deliver a keynote address on the question of, on the called Freedom Day. And I observed there that increasingly the young people of South Africa have no idea, basically, of what Africa went through in support of the struggle. And I said to President Thabo Mbeki, who was still president at that time, that if at this point in time, when you have many leaders of South Africa who have experienced and worked in many of the countries concerned, from Nigeria to Tanzania to Cote d'Ivoire, Zambia and so on, and you still have a situation like that, it shows lack of education, lack of history. And I think it's very important. We must not be dismissive of this. I think the South African government and the South African leadership is embarrassed by this. But what to do?
Yes, what to do?
In other words, there should be education, but this education should not be confined to South Africans. In our own respective countries also, there is some degree of ignorance about others. We should know something. We should be, if we talk of integration seriously, we must talk also what is going on in our countries. We must be able to relay to our people. We must be able to mobilize our people to understand and to be able to appreciate the circumstances that prevail. So in South Africa, you know, it is, I believe very strongly that we must help the South Africans. We must help South Africans so that they also help themselves to get out of this situation.
We are talking of integration. And we have now said there is need for awareness raising, there is need for education, there is need for leadership. I believe that the awareness raising must be global in Africa. There's nowhere where we have done it enough. There's nowhere where there's not a lot of work yet to be done. Like you said, like President Rawlings said, in Nigeria, we woke up one day and our government said non-Nigerians should go. And the majority of non-Nigerians of African descent or African in Nigeria then were Ghanaians. And overnight they have to buy these woven bags to go home. And thousands of them. Those bags have been named Ghana Must Go. Because it was what they used to carry their load. Very myopic, very short-sighted, and very, very un-African. One of the ways that we show that we are African is we are very hospitable. Our culture is culture of hospitality, of gratitude, of absorbing strangers in our midst. Now, when do we and how do we believe that those visitors in our midst will be the one that will take away the work or the jobs? So it's, for me, again, the issue of responsibility and leadership.
I also agree with all the speakers that actually the problem is not in the stars. It's us, the leadership. We have not taken enough initiatives towards integration. We have not engaged with each other to point out what constraints we may be facing as individual countries. So that's true. We're all pleading guilty. And I think some of the other people who are still above us are equally guilty. A lot of progress has been made, but now it seems to be stalling, and it's stalling because the lack of will on the part of the leadership. We were guilty of that, and the present incumbents are also guilty of that.
Stay with the Africa Leadership Dialogues.
Interesting stories, fascinating insights, passionate conversation. But what do you have to say about the issues? Let's take a look at your views.
This week we asked you, how can African states better harmonize and integrate for mutual and continental benefit? Swela Soitara says, by reframing their relations under a new model that creatively and positively reflects their mutual economic and social interest.
Leadership Dialogues from Nairobi, Kenya, and I would say that having a common currency and parliament will really help a lot in improving the intra-African trade by a massive 20%, and also it will decrease the poverty rates in Africa as a continent.
To join our conversation, go to our G+ page, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Facebook, Africa Leadership Dialogues, on Twitter, @AfricaLD. And on WhatsApp, send your video comments to +254 715 816 033.
It's time now for Africa's Top 10.
This week on Africa's Top 10, we feature the top trade blocs in Africa. This is according to the United Nations. Starting us off at number 10 is the West African Economy and Monetary Union. It was established to promote economic integration among the heads of state and governments of Benin, Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, Mali, Niger, Senegal, and Togo. It was commissioned in the year 1994. Coming in at number 9 is the Economic and Monetary Community of Central Africa. It was established by Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Republic of Congo, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon to promote economic integration among member states. Positioned at number 8 is the Community of Sahel-Saharan States. Its main goal is to achieve economic unity through the implementation of free movement of people and goods in order to make the area occupied by member states a free trade area. It was established in 1998. Taking the number 7 spot is the Economic Community of Central African States. It aims to achieve collective autonomy, raise the standard of living of its population, and maintain economic stability through harmonious cooperation. At number 6 is the Arab Maghreb Union, AMU. The union was established in 1989 with an aim of an economic and future political unity among Arab countries of the Maghreb in North Africa. Slotted in at number 5 is the East African Community. Founded with the goal of creating a common currency and eventually a political federation, EAC is an intergovernmental organization composed of Burundi, Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, and Uganda. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development, IGAD, takes the number 4 spot. Established in 1986 with a focus on development and environmental control, IGAD is an 8-country trade bloc in Africa. Positioned at number 3 is the Southern African Development Community, SADC. It was formed with the aim of furthering the socio-economic cooperation and integration as well as political and security cooperation amongst 15 Southern African states. It complements the role of the African Union. Coming in at number 2 is the Economic Community of West African States. Founded in 1975, ECOWAS is a group of 15 West African countries with a mission to promote economic integration across the region. At number 1 this week is the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA. Formed in December 1994, it comprises 20 member states stretching from Libya to Swaziland. And that's Africa's Top 10 this week.
As always on Africa Leadership Dialogues, we end with words of wisdom, our proverb this week. Cross the river in a crowd and the crocodile will not eat you. Let's work together to build the continent and the prosperity for Africans. Blessings to you and blessings to Africa.